If you want to add to that, or if you wish to ask a question about a word that I've used that you don't know, or you just want me to talk more about a subject, let me know, all right? Now, I have a question for you. What's my name?
Dave.
If you are uncomfortable with that, you can call me Mr. Dave, all right? Whatever, I don't care. Just don't call me late to dinner. The Battle of Gettysburg, as you know, lasted 3 days. Who can tell me the dates? Right here. 1863. But July 1st, you're right, is the day that it started. And it lasted 3 days. It was not continuous fighting for 3 days. In fact, the Battle of Gettysburg should be called the Battles at Gettysburg, because there's lots of battles of varying sizes spread over 25 square miles in 3 days. July 1, 2, and 3, 1863, right in the middle of this 4-year-long war. So a war is made up of lots of battles. This is one of about 100 major battles spread across this country. This country barely survived. The Civil War was a terrible time in our country. 167,000 soldiers fought here. 167,000. Have you been to see the Pittsburgh Pirates play baseball? Yeah? That stadium packed when they're winning. That isn't a real reason. But when it's packed, it's a sea of people. But you packed that stadium 3 times, and that's how many soldiers we had here. It's a huge battle. Almost a third of the soldiers here at this battle would be casualties. Dead or wounded or captured or missing. Anyone who doesn't come back after a battle is a casualty. This is Cemetery Hill, named for the town cemetery. You see statues and monuments here marking this as Union position. Hills and ridges are real important. To your left is another cemetery, a second cemetery, and that's the Soldier Cemetery. And it was there that Abraham Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. Do you know what that is? Okay. Yeah. Look to your right. The big green water tank was not here. This side of the hill is not well preserved, but this is all battlefield. We don't leave the battlefield. There's an old brick house here to your right with a statue of a young woman. She is Jenny Wade. Statues of Jenny Wade. She was the only civilian killed at this battle. She was killed there in her sister's home. A bullet fired from a house along the street ahead of us went through the door, the kitchen door. She was baking bread in the kitchen, and the bullet hit her in the back and killed her. It's surprising that only one civilian was killed, because the fighting went right through the streets, and we're going to go right through the streets. The road behind us is the road to Baltimore, 55 miles south to Baltimore, Maryland. That road over there goes to Washington, D.C., 75 miles to Washington. There are 10 roads that lead to this town, and that's why there was a battle here. The roads brought the soldiers. There was no plan to have a battle at Gettysburg. It's just a little town. And coming up on your left, you can see battle damage, bullet marks on the side of a red brick house just past the evergreen trees coming up. All these bullet marks are painted white. You can see them on this red brick house right here. There are several buildings that bear battle damage like that. There are several buildings that have cannonballs lodged in the walls. In fact, there's one coming up on our right. It's up at the top of this red brick building with the archway by the spouting. You see that round ball sticking in the corner of that house? But the buildings that were here at the time of the battle along this street, Baltimore Street, are marked by small plaques, usually beside the front door or front window, and the little plaques say Civil War building, appropriately. Coming up on our right is the Presbyterian Church, which was used as a hospital for wounded soldiers. Up the street to the left is the Catholic Church with a red roof. That was a hospital also. The town became one huge hospital. The courthouse, all the churches, private buildings, college buildings, warehouses, and most of the farms surrounding the town would be hospitals. The bloodiest battle of the Civil War. Historians also call it the turning point of the war. Prior to this battle, General Lee is undefeated here in the East. General Lee and the Confederate Army are on a roll. They have not been beaten, but he will lose this battle. I gave away the ending already. He lost this battle. He was forced to take his army back to Virginia. 3/4 of the way around, we're going to go left out Route 30.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, this is Lincoln Square. It's called Lincoln Square because when Abraham Lincoln came to dedicate the cemetery, he stayed in the red brick house now back over your right shoulders. You can look out the left window and see it again. There's a statue of Abe on the other side of that big truck. But it was there that he finished writing the Gettysburg Address. Have you read it? It's a very short speech. I had to memorize it when I was in 6th grade, or I didn't get to go on a field trip to Gettysburg, and I really wanted to go. Not hard to memorize. It's only 272 words. I just had to put them in the right order. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense at all. We are headed west. The battle started 2 miles ahead of us, well beyond the town. And like all battles, it started very small. It gradually grew as both armies gathered. It spread to the north side of the town, to your right. The Confederates won that first day's battle. And they drove the Union soldiers back through these streets and back to Cemetery Hill. We just passed another house with a cannonball in, but we passed it. Sorry. So when the Confederates captured the town and captured lots of soldiers in the town, they made a mistake and they stopped. And that allowed both armies to continue to gather. So the Confederates won the battle on July 1. But the second day's battle of Gettysburg would be the bloodiest day. And there would be a third day too. General Lee's last chance to win. This is where we leave the town. Do you guys have any questions up here? If you do, and I'm not looking at you, just stop me, okay? Because I like to stand here like a prop myself against this, or otherwise I'll go through the window.
Oh, that wouldn't be good.
That would not be good. We have just left the town of Gettysburg, and this is all battlefield. These buildings that you see here were built after the battle. So these people living in these houses today along this street could be digging in their backyards and find relics, artifacts of battle, bullets or shell fragments perhaps. Ahead of us you see that the road rises. It rises over Seminary Ridge. Ridges like hills are very important. You fight for the high ground. Pull in behind your other bus there.
Yeah.
Tell me your name again.
Justin.
Justin. Right by that green sign. The Lutheran Theological Seminary is here to your left. This is a religious college. A small religious college. It was here at the time of the battle. It sits on a ridge. This is called Seminary Ridge. This is an important piece of property for the battle. Just remember that. But I stop here to show you the cannonball stuck in the wall of this house here to your right. It's way up at the top to the left of that window, and it's not a cannonball, it's a shot. It's a shell. A big bullet-shaped projectile. Do you see it? It looks like a pipe sticking out, a black pipe.
Yeah.
It is a real one from the battle. The problem is it did not get stuck there. It went the whole way through. It knocked a hole in the wall. It came through the roof from the back side of that house, through the roof, out the front wall, and landed out here in the road. So when the people wanted to patch their wall, They said, hey, well, let's just stick that cannonball in. They got it, they put it back in there and cemented around it. So this shows that this building was damaged during the battle. It's not stuck there from the battle, but it's been there. Well, this building was shortly after the battle. Yeah, it was repaired. Okay, does that make sense? And it's a big bullet. It's a huge 10-pound shot. Actually, a shell, hollow shell. And that little hole you see in the front, can you see the little hole in the front? That's the fuse hole. That's an unexploded bomb. A bomb that would be designed to explode in the air. Bombs bursting in air. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. Exactly.
You got a buzz?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's the microphone. So we can go ahead, Justin.
Okay.
Dave.
Yes.
That little room that has
Right, the Star Spangled Banner. You guys sing that all the time, I would expect. Okay, so coming up on our right, there is a small stone building, and this was General Lee's headquarters. Newly preserved. It took 150 years for the government to purchase that house so that they could preserve it. Prior to the government, it was a private museum. Preservation of this battlefield continues today. Not all the battlefield is preserved. We're going to go right. Yeah. This is called McPherson's Ridge, and the monuments left and right mark where soldiers fought. Lines of soldiers, shoulder to shoulder, lines of soldiers. McPherson's Ridge is named for Edward McPherson, who owned that barn right over there. And there are two statues to your left. Over by that big tree to your left, two statues. On horseback is Union General John Reynolds of Pennsylvania. The other guy standing, the bronze statue, is General Buford, whose men will start the battle way out there to the west, to the left, another mile past where you see that barn with the red roof. Everybody see that barn? And beyond that barn, 10 miles from here, that ridge of mountains. And you came across that ridge of mountains this morning. You came in from the west. Bedford's, 150 miles that way. Yes, miss, question. Chamberlain? You learned about Joshua Chamberlain? We did not go past him. We're going to see where his men fought. He does not have a statue here. Okay? But you learned about his soldiers and what he did with his soldiers at Little Round Top. And that's the opposite end of the battlefield. And that's part of the second day's battle. Okay? So I haven't talked about the first day yet. We got to do that. We got to bring in the soldiers and get this battle underway. But thanks for bringing that up. I'm glad, because now I know what to talk about. Because sometimes I don't mention him.
Okay, guys, I'll be back.
Old soldiers. A long, long time ago. The old soldiers, the veteran soldiers, after the war was over, came here. They walked these fields at reunions. And they said, this is where we fought. And this is where our monument should be. This is where we want to be remembered, those old soldiers said. Coming up on your right is a monument that is 125 years old. It represents a group of soldiers from Pennsylvania. Numerically, it is the 17th Cavalry. Cavalry. Isn't it beautiful? Look at that rifle that guy has. It's a short-barreled rifle. That's called a carbine. It's loaded from the back end like a modern rifle. It can be loaded and fired 10 times in a minute. Cavalry soldiers. They specifically do what? How do you know he's a cavalry soldier? He's a horse, yes, he's a horse soldier. Very good. What are soldiers called that don't ride horses? Infantry. Very good. Take a parking place, please, Justin. Hey, you know those guys right there? There's some good-looking people on that steps. You want to get off? I don't think it's raining.
Yeah, let's get off.
I'll tell you what, let's get off.
Yeah,
Let's come right across the street in front. Maybe I can get an adult to be my crossing guard. It's not a very busy place. But why don't you come off
Look at the
first?
thing. Let's go.
And please follow us.
Dude, go.
Just up.
You can take it. We can take our things.
Oh, you
Probably won't need it.
ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to take anything with you unless you want to take a picture. You might want to take your phone or your camera.
Let's go.
Tour guide.
Young man, I would like you to form a line with your heels on the edge of the grass and face me. Young ladies, I want you to come in front of them. Right? Perfect. Perfect. And just make a line. Men in the back. Young lady.
Don't go so tall of them.
That won't last very long. They'll be sprouting up like weeds pretty soon. Come on over, guys. Guys in the back, girls in the front.
You won't even see some of them.
Boy,
Young ladies in the front row facing me. Young men with heels on the edge of the grass. Heels on the edge of the grass. Heels, not toes.
Straight off YouTube.
You know
So
the
you don't have
difference.
to have a verification. Heels on the edge of the grass, not your.
Young ladies up in the front. Right here. Okay, balanced out really well. Please stand at attention. I want you to about face. And that's Army talk for turn right around. Turn around. All right. Over there to your left is a very large monument behind your other group. That is called the Eternal Light Peace Memorial. Has a flame on top. This is the first of at least 5 eternal flame monuments in this country. Eternal flame. It's never go out, although it does. So it's not so eternal. But this monument is not a monument to the Battle of Gettysburg. It is not a monument to soldiers. It's a monument to peace. It is symbolic of the reunification of the country. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this country was torn apart. This country barely survived. It did, and this monument commemorates that it did survive. The 2 female figures carved in the limestone side of this monument represent the North and the South, standing now side by side. Okay? President Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, was here to give a speech. So he was the second, well, that wasn't actually the second, but he was one of many presidents that gave speeches at Gettysburg. I didn't see this guy. I'm not that old. My mother was here to hear the president. Okay? So, if I could get you to stand at attention and about face. See, you guys run quick. That block of woods right there? You are looking south towards that block of woods. But 70 miles south is is Washington, D.C. Virginia. What can you tell me about Richmond, Virginia? Yes, sir.
Isn't that where General Lee was from?
Okay, you're absolutely right. He was from Virginia. Virginia was the state capital, but at the time of the Civil War, it was the capital of the Confederate States of America. The Confederate States of America, the CSA, not the USA. 11 southern states, remember, from Texas to Florida to Virginia, didn't want to be part of the United States anymore, and they made their own country, the CSA. But they had to win this war to remain a country. And Abraham Lincoln isn't going to let them do